What's up, fellow Age Groupies? Welcome back to another episode of the Age Groupies podcast, part of the United WeCast Network. I'm Mike Ergo, and along with my co-host Lindsay Hyken, we're here to talk to you about all things related to endurance sports from an amateur athlete perspective. We talk about how to have fun along the way and make this sport a little less intimidating. You can follow the show on Instagram at Age Groupies, join our Age Groupies page on Facebook, and look us up by name, Lindsay Hyken and Mike Ergo on Strava. If you have any questions, comments, topic ideas, email us, agegroupies@gmail.com. And if you guys like the show, you know what to do. Leave us a rating and review on iTunes or wherever that other place that you get podcasts are that I don't know. Today's guest is Adam Hill. Adam is an accomplished triathlete. He's been to Kona in 2017, where I met him, and he has raced a few different Ironman races. He's pretty fast, way faster than me. Really cool dude. I met him for the first time right before we raced in T1 as we were pumping up the air in our tires on our bikes. Adam, beyond just being an incredible athlete, is someone who's found a way to have a different relationship with anxiety. Anxiety that can be crippling, that can be horrible for a lot of people. Adam's found a different way to relate to what anxiety means and what it can do for him and how he's turned it into a superpower. It's pretty cool to see. So you guys are going to like this episode. Links in the show notes of how you can get in contact with him. He's a triathlon coach, so if you need some coaching, check him out for sure. And just to see what he's up to. All right, guys, sit back and enjoy. Adam Hill, welcome to Age Groupies, man. It is good to have you on the show.
Thanks, man. This is awesome to be here. I'm always honored to talk to you.
We've talked a bunch, and it's mostly been over Facebook Messenger. And I think I'm trying to think, like, in person, we might have like spoken for like a couple minutes, like right before Kona started. You're like, "Hey, Mike, it's Adam Hill," and I was like, "Oh, hey, what's up, man?" And then we got into the water.
Yeah, the most nervous time we could possibly be. Absolutely.
Well, it's funny when you meet someone on like talk online a lot, because we know each other pretty well, but like face-to-face actual human interaction has been a couple minutes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's bizarre. I mean, I was thinking about the first time we met. Yeah, on the Kona Pier, and it's the most surreal experience you're ever in. I mean, you got cameras everywhere. Cameras are filming you. I don't know about the big star that you're about to become, and we're just like, whoa,
Yeah.
This is amazing. And so it was bizarre, but it was amazing at the same time. So we always share that common kind of point in our lives, which is pretty awesome.
That was a cool intersection. That you're right. I remember that morning too. I mean, people you see on TV and you follow, all these pro athletes. I remember meditating, just kind of calm my mind down a little bit, and then I open my eyes and I see Jan Frodeno doing a shoulder stretch right by me. I was like,
right,
because of course that would happen.
Exactly. Yeah, Daniela Reese just right there. Nobody.
Yeah,
she's only going to win the guy. Win the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's been so cool to connect with you because seeing your story on Quest for Kona and just seeing what you've overcome. Especially listen to your interview on Yogi Triathlete podcast was really cool. And so I want to, as we go through some of your journey, and especially how you have changed your relationship to anxiety, and also about your approach to eating. So I guess let's start with that A word, anxiety, because I mean that is a killer for some people. I mean, it is crippling. I know what it's like to have panic attacks. I've had many. I'm professional at those, and just a lot of people are just, when they feel this sense of overwhelming nervousness, they get paralyzed or they just have to leave, and it leads to detrimental lifestyle changes.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah. And for me, it was, I know that everybody experiences anxiety differently. And for me, it just came on like like a bag of bricks just hit me. And it happened in my early 20s, really. I had no real issues, except I was a bit of a worrier. My parents thought I was, worried too much or something, but it really never manifested itself until just one experience that was just completely random for me. That was completely irrational. I was just studying for an exam in college, and I had this panic attack it just hit me, and I didn't know that it was a panic attack. I legitimately, for some reason, thought that I had that I had contracted HIV, which sounds ridiculous. I mean, I wasn't, and that's why I wanted to kind of share that. It's just such a ridiculous presumption to go like immediately leap to that.
Oh, but yeah,
for no
but
reason.
in the moment, it makes complete sense. That's exactly what
Absolutely.
it is in the moment. It's so real.
Yeah, and like I wasn't promiscuous. I know. I mean, but and I wasn't doing intravenous drugs or anything like that, and so there was no reason to suspect that would be the case. But it just happened to enter my mind, and I literally just was in the fetal position on the floor crying for no reason, and it was so certain, and a minute felt like it lasted 5 hours, and then that panic attack started to fade after a short while, but the resonance of that anxiety kept with me, and it was just always in my head. I have this issue until I went to the doctor and I got tested and found out that wasn't the case. But then that started like, well, it's probably cancer. Then I've got cancer.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely has to be.
And definitely cancer. It has to be cancer. And so, and that cycle continued because I wasn't acknowledging, or I didn't know what the actual cause of that panic was. It just, I didn't know what an anxiety disorder was. I didn't know what panic attacks were. It just happened to me, and I tried to hide it from everyone. And the way that the thing that I found that was my solution to it, because it provided immediate relief, was alcohol.
Booze. Exactly. Yeah, that's I hear you, man. Part of my story too.
Yeah.
As my old CEO used to say, boozing and losing.
Right. Well, it's such the perfect drug to enter society, and for people that have problems with things like anxiety, depression, because it's so prevalent, and there's that thin line between socially acceptable and problematic.
Yes, exactly.
And then that grays so quickly. And it grayed for me. I was drinking heavily in college, where, well, quite frankly, everyone was drinking heavily. Everybody's drinking problematic.
Yeah.
And and so when I got into that, I didn't recognize it as a problem for a very long time, and nobody else really recognized it as a problem too. Nor do they. A lot of times with alcohol, people don't recognize it in anybody else because the alcoholic becomes so good at hiding it, or they try so hard, or the times that it's actually seen, it's perceived as just like a one-off, or you know what, you'll be okay. There's a lot of enabling to it, but yeah. So I was problematic before I recognized it as a problem, and then by then it was a part of my life, and I didn't know what else to do, and I didn't know what this anxiety disorder was, and eventually, I started seeing a doctor, or seeing doctors to try to manage my anxiety a little better and see if there was something I could get. Without having known it, I just went and said, look, I've been having, these just really nervous thoughts. And their response was, well, you should take this drug, take Paxil, and, here you go. And that sort of thing. There wasn't really a recommendation to go see somebody about it, or telling me that this was the problem, or telling me how prevalent it was. If I knew at the time that, millions and millions of people struggle with this, then, I probably would, it at least would have been a little more acceptable to me to like go and seek
completely
help. But there was,
you feel well, let me back up for a second. One, when you're having these panic attacks and when you're experiencing high levels of anxiety, it's just chaos. There's not the understanding of your prefrontal cortex telling you, this is irrational nervousness, and this has nothing to do with the situation. It's something that is, some chemical thing happened in my body. No, there's none of that. It's just chaos, and you don't know what it is, especially until you've been told that, this is anxiety, and this is something that, like you said, if you had known that other people had this too, there probably wouldn't have been an element of needing to hide it, because that is the big thing. It's like, well, I remember having it too, and thinking like, this is only me. Nobody else in the world has this, so I need to hide it. And well, I got to hide the ways I cover up, and it becomes this weird thing that you have to have this hidden life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, there's no better feeling for it than just feeling like you're all alone. And I know, that, and it's very dark. There's just a dark feeling to it always. And so so yeah, I continued basically the pattern of just trying to suppress the anxiety by continuing to drink. And obviously that didn't mend it. And, by the time I recognized that I had a problem with anxiety, or even heard the term generalized anxiety disorder, I was already well into the bottle, and that had already been imprinted in my mind as a part of my life. And the compulsive nature and addictive nature of that whole thing, it just becomes, it becomes ingrained in our psyche.
Right. This is part of my day. Just like getting up and going to
Yeah.
the bathroom is part of my day.
Yeah. And if you lose it, you're cutting off an arm or you're cutting off a leg. You can't live without it. It's a part of you.
Hey, Mike, did I ever tell you about the time I went to a popular cycling studio and it was super bizarre? I was dressed like regular scumbag trainer clothes and everyone else had on, matching Lululemon, full face of makeup. And the instructor kept yelling, "Ladies, let's dance," which I had no idea what she was talking about. I was like,
That's so weird.
Let's dance. Are we riding? Anyway, that all happened because I was trying to maintain cycling fitness during the winter.
Yeah, winter months are tough. Days are shorter. It's cold. It's rainy. Takes a lot of extra time to gear up, and a lot of those rides are going to get canceled anyways because it's going to be too dangerous outside. Anyways, I spent a lot of my time indoors training, even during the summer months, just because I got small kids and I want to get this training done early. I also love group classes, but I spend majority of my time training alone in my garage. That can be pretty boring. So we have a way for our listeners to make that training during the off season or during the winter months or whenever you want really exciting. CycleCast app provides studio quality classes for both indoor cycling and running.
Awesome. Who needs to see a bunch of other weirdos on spin bikes anyways? We need an instructor who has an ear for music that will get us hammering those pedals and a ride plan that keeps us engaged during long trainer sessions.
Yes, I finally tried it, and it's exactly what I got from CycleCast. So they use music through your phone in this app, which works for Android. It works for iOS, so it doesn't matter what kind of phone you have. It uses minimal data, minimal battery power, and it's your phone. You bring it everywhere you go. So you got classes from different instructors at different lengths. It doesn't matter what time of day or night you're doing it. You can do it all on your own schedule.
That's awesome. Plus, the running programs are both indoor and outdoor, which is huge for me as I train for Trans Rockies this year. I'm doing a combination of treadmill and trail, and the treadmill is about as exciting as the trainer. So this is definitely helping me make those sessions more engaging. And as our gift to Age Groupies listeners, we have an awesome promo. Go to cyclecast.com/activate and enter the code GROUPIES to get a 30-day free trial on top of the regular 7-day free trial. That's like 5 weeks of free stuff, y'all. That's cyclecast.com/activate, CYCLECAST. Don't forget to use the promo code GROUPIES, GROUPIES. CycleCast. You're going to love where this app takes you.
There's insanity there because I remember thinking obviously like that was it was a deal breaker. There was no way I was going to consider life without alcohol. So a lot of people will try to navigate around, okay, so because I'm going to drink a lot and cause chaos and wreckage, here's how I minimize the damage or hide it from people.
Right. Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, it's a constant battle with the brain. I mean, the brain never shuts off. I mean, it's already got this trigger in there saying that I've got to constantly be anxious or constantly think about things. But then you add on top of that, all right, now I've got this element. I've got to hide this other thing that I'm doing, which is drinking heavily and drinking problematically.
Yeah.
And convince myself and convince others that I don't have a problem. And that was my deal. Was just I tried so hard to be a functional alcoholic.
Oh, it's a lot of work. It's so much work.
It's so much work, man. I mean, getting up at 5 a.m. hungover, trying to like act like you're the best work on earth.
Yeah.
And
I can see straight. Come on.
Yeah, right. I'm not wobbling. You're wobbling. Why are there two of you? It's just, it is. You describe it perfectly. Insanity. my bottom, I would say, came with a DUI, which if you're an alcoholic or you have problems with, any kind of substance, you at least for me, I can only speak from my own experience, but I set a lot of rules for myself. Like, I was like an alcoholic mogwai who didn't want to turn into a gremlin. No drinking before 5 p.m. No drinking on the weekdays. No drinking and driving. And that was always my biggest rule, and the one that I would never break. And so as long as I held on to that one, I was okay. I was a good drinker. But then, until I did start drinking and driving, and it was just, and so my DUI accident happened, and it broke me. I mean, it just made me realize that in my own mind that I didn't have a reason to live, and now I was being a harm to others. I was harmful to others. I was a danger to others. Not just to myself. This wasn't just me managing my anxiety with some liquid solution because I didn't want to address the realities of my own life.
Right.
It was now affecting my family. It was affecting other people, innocent people, and I was causing destruction elsewhere. And for that, I sat in the jail cell and basically just wanted my life to end. And yeah, that was the darkest moment for me.
Well, so you're down. Yeah, that's when you have some time to look in the mirror. That look in the mirror is hard. That look in the mirror is so hard. What started to pull you out, and how long did it take to where you realize there's a way forward?
Yeah. Well, there was no secret around it anymore. I mean, everything was there for the world to see. My name was in the paper the next day, telling the world that I was arrested, and I. My wife was on the verge of leaving me, and I had to stay at my parents' house, which was empty because they were in Hawaii, and I was just sleeping there, alone, realizing that was going to be my life. I was just sitting here alone, freeloading off of people without and becoming a danger to others. And I realized that, well, I have two options. I mean, I could end it, and but I had brief periods of sobriety in the past where I tried to get sober basically by my own willpower, and didn't have enough of it to try to actually succeed. But I fortunately, whatever power in the universe, for me it's a God, intervened in my heart and told me not to end it and to actually just give this Alcoholics Anonymous thing a try. And so I went there. I was willing. I didn't want to drink anymore. And for the longest time before that, I realized that in my heart I didn't want to drink anymore. It was just a solution. It was
lack of better options, right?
Absolutely. I mean, at first it's fun, then it's fun with problems, then it's just problems. And it had been nothing but problems for me for years. And so I went into the program and was fully engaged in it. And I'm not recommending it, or I'm not promoting it or anything like that. I'm just telling where I came from and what I did, which was through that program. And I did the things that I was afraid to do previously because I only had one foot in. I got myself a sponsor. I surrounded myself by the lifestyle of sobriety. I immersed myself in it, and for an entire 2 years or so, I was there every day, and just doing the deal, and that really helped because my entire perspective changed. It gave me the attitude of there's another solution, there's another way, there's a community of people that are struggling with this. And hearing their stories, wow, I can relate to that. Wow, that person has the same thing I do. They may look a little different, but they have the same thing I do.
Yeah, there's something really cool. And, that solidarity.
Yeah. It's an incredible community for that purpose, and it honestly, I mean, very quickly it made it actually brought serenity to my life in the sense that. I had all of these consequences that were coming from my actions. But you know what? Whatever that was going to be, it was going to be, and I deserved it. and I had to do what I had to do to make it better over the long run, and mend the wreckage of my past, which I started getting to work on doing, and that really does work. It is really about willingness and whatever can make somebody willing. So it's always been hard for me to say, to acknowledge that I could be grateful for such a terrible thing that I did.
Oh yeah, it's a weird thing, but I get you.
Yeah. But later on in life, it's like, well, I wouldn't have made this transformation, so I'm not grateful, or I'm not glad that I did that, but I am grateful that it happened, because and it happened the way it did. I mean,
that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, and thank God that I didn't, harm anybody. But the fact that did happen, it lit the spark of a transformation that makes me just a much more joyful person. So I think back to when I was in the jail cell, wanting to die and all that kind of stuff. And if I had actually decided to go the other route, I mean, just the miracle that I would have missed. And, that just gets to me every single day, that I'm just so glad I didn't make that decision.
Yeah. You got a beautiful family. Kids are just like athletic superstars, it looks like. A wife who does Ironman with you. And yeah, you're right. You would have missed out on so much. It's hard to see it in that moment, but obviously now looking back, you're like, wow. I mean, so let's talk a little bit about that. So where does exercising and triathlon come in? I mean, you go from like boozing all the time to then becoming a Kona qualifier and racing in the Ironman World Championships.
Oh, did I tell you about
that? I love that ongoing joke too.
Right. Well, that's a funny tangent, because for the longest time, I don't know if this was true for you too, Mike, but because we were on an Ironman show or NBC show, we couldn't talk about ourselves doing the race until it aired. And so having qualified for Kona, the first thing I wanted to do was shout it from the rooftops, but couldn't do it for many, many months until after we'd even raced.
That's Kona. So strange. I know.
Yeah, it was bizarre. And everybody knew. And so they were just like, everyone was always saying stuff, and I was always having to be quiet about it. Finally, in something like December,
I can neither confirm nor deny what said race that you're talking about.
Right.
I remember having those like veiled conversations with you. It's interesting that we might meet at a location.
Yeah.
I think that was like the how cryptic we were talking about it leading up.
Yeah. We will see you on the place where we all gather for these events.
Exactly. So they're either in the KKK, about to do some satanic ritual, or racing Kona. We're not sure.
Right. Yeah. So that was a bizarre experience, but yeah, so transformation. There's obviously a few different levels to it, and so when I got sober, that was all I did. It was all about sobriety. And it still is. It's first before anything else, because if I'm not sober, I'm no good to anybody. And so for that year, I was immersed in the program and everything like that. And healthy habits were of any other kind were still not really well known to me or anything. I was still smoking. I was still a peanut M&M connoisseur.
Ooh, yeah, that's deadly.
Yeah, I know.
It's so deadly.
I mean, I still am, but it's a little more in moderation now. But yeah, so I was continuing down unhealthy paths, and though I was sober and my mind was clearing up, and what was happening to me during that period of sobriety, during that first year of sobriety, was my mental or my mindset was changing, and I didn't know it. I mean, I knew that I was getting sober, but I didn't know that my mindset was changing from an I can't to an I can kind of perspective, because I had spent so many years just convincing myself that I was a piece of crap, and that I couldn't stop drinking, and I had no control over anything, and that I couldn't do things. That it was just imprinted in me. But now I was doing this thing. I was sober for a year, which is something I never thought I'd ever be able to do. And it gave me this point of reference to which I could draw other things on. And so going back in time, I think it was like 2006, it was the first time I saw the IRONMAN World Championship on TV. And I saw people like you and me, like normal people, or people with
people
their
that
own
weren't in the
challenges.
Olympics, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I was just blown away by these people that were doing this crazy event. You know, amputees, people who had survived cancer. You know, John Blaze, who had ALS. You know, crossing the finish line, you know, rolling over the finish line. I remember that was the first one I saw, and I was like, wow, that would be incredible. And that would be so awesome. I wonder what it would be like if I could do that. And then my immediate feeling at that point in my life was, yeah, you can never do something like that. And then it was just like, crack another beer, feel sorry for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
I did. And for some reason, you know, I was recovering from a shoulder surgery that I'd had because of, you know, I did some stupid injury. But I was recovering from a torn labrum in bed, and I remember, you know, I was bigger than I'd ever been. I was over 200 pounds, which, you know, for a guy my size is pretty big, and you know, still smoking and all that kind of stuff. And as I was recovering, I for some reason it hit me in my head. It was just like, yeah, I was just thinking about, like, you know, the previous year of sobriety and how awesome it was that I could do something that I thought I could never do, and then it just, for some reason, it entered my brain again. For some reason, I hadn't thought about it in years. And it was just, I remembered that watching that on TV, watching the Ironman World Championship on TV. And I was like, man, you know, I remember those guys, those people were just so happy after 17 hours. And and then I remember my mindset was totally different when to the person I was in 2006. I said to myself, you know, I bet I could do that. You know, and it was just that mindset.
Just that shift is so huge. It's so underrated, and it's so understated, that just mindset change from there's no way I could do that automatic thought, to I wonder if, like, what if I could, to let's give it a try.
Right. It's change your question, change your life. It's just, it was so powerful at that moment. And I realized it almost made me cry at that moment, because it was just like, I felt this overwhelming sense of, I know I can do this. It was such a tremendous belief in myself. And it wasn't just that I wanted to go do an Ironman. I wanted to do that Ironman. And at that time I was like, okay, so how do I sign up for the Ironman Hawaii?
Yeah.
And so I went online and I was like, all right. And very quickly I found that it's a little difficult to qualify.
Yeah, it's more of an invitational.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, I discovered that there were other races and everything. And I'm like, okay, well, I still want to do that one, but it's obviously going to take some effort to try to get there. So how do I do that? And, you know, meanwhile, I'm like, I just made the decision to stop smoking. I'm still, you know, the peanut M&M connoisseur and everything. And I'm afraid to tell anybody, because I'm still afraid to tell anybody, even my wife, because I'm like, you know what? It's just so out of character for me, and who's going to actually believe that I would want to do something like that?
Were you nervous people were going to laugh at it, or that people were going to hold you to it, or what was going through your head?
Yeah, there's no question everybody was going to laugh at me. I wasn't necessarily worried about the laughing aspect, but more of the condescending, like, you know, hand on the shoulder, look, buddy, you know, I know you want to do this, but, you know, it's just not who you are.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing I was most afraid of. But, you know, as with anything, of course, with my wife, I always underestimate, you know, how supportive she is. And, you know, Marie is her name. She immediately, when I told her about this, she's like, oh yeah, you got to do it. And
That's so cool.
I realized, yeah.
What if, like, your life hinged on, like, that moment of her support?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what, I never thought of it that way, but you're right. It's yeah, I mean, like, it could have gone a different direction if I was with, you know, somebody that didn't have that level of support. And I'm just reminded of, you know, how wonderful that is. And, you know, and she said that, and I realized it, or I didn't realize at that moment, but that was a defining moment, because I realized that I have to be careful with whatever I tell my wife that I want to do.
Yeah.
Because I did the same thing with the Quest for Kona thing, and she's like, yeah, do it.
Then they remember, then you have to do it, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Now you're accountable. And that's a big part of it. So she had that support. So I immediately just started getting obsessed with it and learning everything I could about it. And I looked at races and saw that Ironman Cabo would be Cabo San Lucas would be a fun race to do, because it's maybe a 2-hour flight from where we live. And so it's oddly enough our home race, because there's not many in Southern California.
Really. I never thought of it that way. That's true though.
Yeah. And so I immediately signed up for almost probably at the time one of the hardest Ironmans on the circuit. and that was going to happen in a year. So I had a year to transform. So I just added that accountability structure. So I had to learn triathlon from scratch to get to that first Ironman.
Wow. Do you have any background in running, biking, or swimming?
A little bit in running. I'd done a couple of like half marathons and just to try to push it. And those were all done while I was actively alcoholic. Kind of one of those things where I was like, all right, I want to balance this problem that I have, even though I didn't recognize that, with some kind of healthy habits to try to offset it. But it's like I'm smoking cigarettes, I'm drinking heavily, and I'm going out for these like really crappy runs that don't have any structure.
Yeah, exactly.
And,
I'll run that way. Should I keep going? I'll keep going.
Yeah,
let's go a little faster.
Yeah. No pain, no gain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that hence the reason I got injured. But yeah, so I'd done a few things, but never been on a road bike. Never in any structured way had I swam in a pool, because I was a surfer. I mainly surfed, but yeah. So I had to learn everything from scratch, and it was just an obsessive. How do I do this? And as with anything, if you search up Ironman online, you quickly discover who the best of the best were back in the day, and that's Mark Allen, Dave Scott.
Oh man, yeah.
Across the Iron War, and that was like, geez. And that got me to Maffetone and the Maffetone Method, which was just a complete departure for me on the way that I'd ever approached any kind of exercise.
It's counterintuitive, I think, especially for Americans, but maybe just Western culture in general. It's to go slower to get faster. I mean, I'm a Maffetone guy myself, so it's always cool to meet a fellow Maffetone Method person. But yeah, it's so weird because did you feel so odd going like so slow? It didn't feel like a workout.
Yeah, it was hard mentally for a while, but what I equated that to was I was so bought into that, and I already had this mindset of just do what you're told, or do the next indicated step, do what the experts tell you, and just follow that with discipline. That it was actually welcome to me, and I was like, all right, I'm bought into this, and I just had this belief that I'm going 13 minutes a mile now at 142 heart rate. But eventually that pace is going to come down because I'll become fat adapted. I'll be able to run for longer, and it just really quickly started working. I mean, you see these dramatic results really quickly for the course of weeks, and it's just like, wow, I've been doing it wrong for so long. Just every workout had to be hard. Everything I did had to be give it my all. But the slow, easy stuff, it's just the perfect way to get into any sport. I'm like, why doesn't everybody know this?
Yeah. So you start getting in shape. You take down some Ironmans. What's it like, first of all, to cross that first finish line of your first full?
Oh man, it's kind of sad in a way, because you're so tired and you're so fatigued that you barely remember the finish line shoot. But and so I remember in Cabo, kind of coming up to the finisher chute, and there were a couple 5-year-olds sticking their hand out. And that was something I always wanted to do, was to high five a 5-year-old, coming to the finish line. So I was like, I reached down, high five him, and then realized it was a really bad idea because now I'm cramping. So I made a weird move.
Yeah.
And entering the finish line and shoot, and I'm like, I want to high five people, but it was a race in Mexico, so it wasn't Mike Riley there, given that, you're an Ironman, it was, the local, I actually think it was Michael Lovato was there doing that. But I didn't know who it was at the time.
Yeah.
So I was, I ran through, and I wanted to give this, fist bump and this shout, yeah, kind of thing, where I was like, yeah. But I don't know if it was just the hoarseness of my voice or whatever, but it sounded like a sea lion was getting punched in the stomach. So there's there's this video of me cross the finish line, fist pumping, like, kind of thing. So I was like, wow. But yeah, just that feeling afterward was incredible. I mean, like, finishing this, I was shivering cold, but it was 90 degrees, and I was sitting amongst all these other finishers, and I just felt like, yeah, I mean, I'm one of these folks now, and yeah, it sticks with you.
So cool. And then flash forward to 2017, and you are racing the Ironman World Championships. I mean, I want to ask you about that morning. What was it like waking up knowing that you were going to race at Kona that day?
Wow, I was a ball of nerves. I mean, I'm anxious person, right?
Yeah,
and that doesn't go away. I mean, it's important to know. I mean, that anxiety doesn't go away. You live with it. You manage it. I mean, and for me, I've tried to develop it into a superpower, but it's still there, and it still manifests itself in irrational ways. And the Ironman swim is super supportive. There's a kayak every 100 yards. There's so many people out there to support you, so many lifeguards, everything like that. But everything in my mind was telling me, as I sat in my condo that overlooked the beach, which would at any other time be the most awesome thing in the world, but the day before an Ironman, where you're hearing the storm come in and you're hearing the waves break, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to swim in that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm just thinking, victory at sea. I don't know if you remember the days leading up to it, but it was like one day it would be super stormy and swelly in the water, and then one day it would be super flat, one day it would be super stormy. So it was just like messing with my mind.
Yeah, what's it going to be? I remember that. You're watching like the white caps and chop and be like, well, that should be interesting.
Yeah, right. And so I was so panicked in that morning, but I was so fortunate that to have a tribe there. I mean, of course, my wife, but there were also a couple of racers from Quest for Kona who qualified, Suzanne Van Sale and Andrew Jameson.
Yes.
And I met Suzanne that morning, and I was just kind of sitting down waiting for transition to open, because I'm always super early to transition. And she met me, and she's like, we get to do this pretty amazing thing. And I'm just like, man, I'm nervous. I'm worried about it. She's like, you know what? You've done this how many times before? You deserve to be here. You've got this. I'm just like, it's like, yeah, I mean, it just having that community really, really helps and put me back in focus. And then seeing you up there, seeing the cameras and everything, once you're in the transition, I don't know if you get this experience, but once you're in the transition area, it's just like all that goes away, and you're just like, focus.
Yeah, there's a threshold. Like I know what you're talking about. For me, it's like kind of an internal journey where it's like, okay, now I'm here, and now I'm pumping up my bike, and now I'm like in the race. Before that, though, you're waiting. That's like it's before time, which is Let me ask you about this then. The anxiety as a superpower. Tell me about how you made it a superpower when before it was something that controlled your life.
Well, I think with anxiety in particular, what I've discovered, at least within myself, that there seems to be, with every negative, I mean, it's kind of like the, I don't remember which Newton's law it is, but for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Mm-hmm. But there seems to be, with every negative symptom of, say, anxiety or depression or things like that, there tends to be an opposite of that comes with it, a yin and a yang. And like, you hear about the most high performing people in the world that have, that may tend to have depression or things like that. And that became interesting to me. And I just started to think about myself and like what I felt that I could do better than other people because of the fact that I had an anxious personality. Well, what's the nature of my anxiety? And a lot of it comes from obsession. I obsess about things. I obsess about things like having cancer or things like this and that. I obsess about drinking alcohol as a solution. So I have an obsessive personality that manifests from anxiety. Well, how can I make that obsession a positive? Well, I have this obsessive focus now. And so I realized that I could take obsessive focus and apply that to my training, to my nutrition, to the things I do, and actually turn it into discipline. If I practice it in a healthy way. Because I've been trying so long to do things based on willpower. Like I want to suppress my anxiety by a sheer force of will. And that doesn't work because I created a void.
Dude, you're swimming against a rip current right there.
Yeah, right. But discipline, on the other hand, I mean, discipline is learned. I mean, and you know better than anyone else about discipline, and it's just like, taking the, taking certain steps to try to, hold yourself accountable to make it so that you can practice consistently certain things in your life. And so I think that obsessive focus for me became something that I became good at doing, and a positive, say, superpower for anxiety.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So instead of swimming against the riptide, you're saying, okay, how can I use this energy to direct me towards what I value in life? And so you're not fighting it. It seems like, from what I understand, that a lot of the suffering we have comes from resisting things that are. And so instead of resisting this anxiety, this nervous energy, you directed it in ways that were healthy for you, and you saw the positive benefits of, like, okay, now I'm more detail oriented and obsessive or preoccupied with the perfect, or let's say a good training plan, healthy lifestyle, and everything. You can apply it instead of have it just crush you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously it comes with a lot more healing that's involved. I mean, I don't want to simplify it by just saying, turn it all into a superpower.
Yeah.
It's easier said than done.
Exactly.
But I mean, there's so much healing that goes on behind the scenes of learning how to, how to recognize anxiety as an irrational side, and taking that monster and making it an insignificant bystander rather than a key person or key form in your life. But yeah, I think that, taking it to the next level, it was necessary for me to look at the positives that come out of this thing that I have to live with.
So you apply those things. You have Suzanne put things in perspective for the race in Kona. And how did your race go? Because I saw your finish photo, and you're probably finishing like while I was headed out to the energy lab, I think. But you finished during the day, which is awesome. And you looked happy about it from the photos. How'd the day go for you?
Oh, it went amazing. I mean, I could have finished at 16:59, and I would have been the happiest person on earth.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the amazing thing about our sport, is that, the last place finisher is just as happy as the first place finisher.
Yes.
I mean, you look at that, it's such an amazing testament to our sport. But the day went well, and what I just tried to do was just soak everything in. I know that I wasn't gonna start the race and lead off the front of the swim, so I hung back. I found a friend, and we swam out together, and that helped to calm my nerves a bit. And we just hung out. I floated for a while. I let about 2 or 3 minutes go by after the cannon went off, and then I started swimming. I swam a comfortable 1:22 or something like that behind the people beating each other up. And then I went out for the ride behind a lot of the groups, and was actually, I was riding with a lot of the lead amateur females and everything. So I was trying to, stay out of their draft packs because it just gets super congested.
Yeah.
But yeah, just heading out there and just and experiencing the whole thing. I mean, 5-hour bike ride or 5.5-hour bike ride sounds like a long time, but when you're out there, even in the lava fields, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm here. It's for 5.5 hours. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm here. Can't believe I'm here.
No,
oh my God, I'm going up a hobby. Oh my gosh, I'm coming down a hobby. Oh my God, I'm going 50 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's just
try not to get blown off the cliff here.
Right. Oh my gosh, it's the Kona winds.
Yeah.
As you're almost getting blown into and then getting onto the run, and you're just like, wow, I'm running through Kona. I've seen this on television. I've seen Miranda Carfrey do this. I've seen Mark Allen do this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing it. And it was just so amazing. And I think the only dark moments I have had during that were, when I got to mile 10, and mile 10, you turn up, oh gosh, what's that road? The big climb. I forgot.
I know what you're talking about, though. Yeah, it sucks.
Palani
Road.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I was climbing up Palani, and then I'm like, so that was 10 miles. I have 16 miles to go, and I have to go back into the lava fields where I came off the bike. And I'm just like, I don't know if I could do that? Can I last between aid stations? And my mind went back and it reverted back to that. I don't know if I could do this.
Yeah.
And I recognized it at that time, and I'm just like, well, I'm going through it anyway, because one of the things that I'd learned about my fears and anxiety is that even if if your fears or your anxieties are telling you something that are rational, and you should go, you should just go anyway and go through it, and it's going to come out on the other side better. And so I did, and it was painful. It hurt tremendously, but I just remember going through the energy lab and coming back into town, going back down Palani where it was all downhill, and you're just like, in a mile, I'm gonna cross this finish line that I've been working for years to overcome.
Yes.
And it's just, I saw Daniela Reef go. So yeah, I had the same experience you did, only Daniela Reef was coming, the opposite, or no, well, on my way out, sorry, on the out to Palani, I saw Daniela Reef coming out and winning. So that wasn't right. It just confused my brain. But
yeah,
so coming in, it was just like, just running with all these people and all the flags showing. It was just surreal. And I tried really, really hard in that moment to say, I got to remember this. I got to remember this one. I got to remember this finish line. And, fortunately I do. And fortunately I had the pictures to show, that, because that's just the feeling that I'm always, it was just a real neat moment for me. And it was super awesome to be able to hang around there and watch you finish, and, Suzanne and Andrew and all the other people that, I was following there. It's just such a cool sport to be a part of.
You talk about one of the coolest days ever, at least, it sounds like in both of our lives. Wow.
Yeah.
So from Kona, I mean, you're a coach, you work with athletes, you continuing to be in the sport. What's life after Kona like?
It's it's interesting once you accomplish a goal like that and you don't really have anything beyond that. There is a bit of a void that happens within the sport. So I took a couple of years and kind of scaled back, but at least and I did a couple of Ironmans, but did a lot of local races last year where I just took it back. But I had a renewed passion this past year to kind of get back into it. So I found myself a new coach. I'm working, with Rebecca Keat at Team Sirius, who's Siri Lindley's wife, and trying to get, trying to find another 10% if I can. And yeah, I'm doing a lot of coaching myself. So I started Extra Life Fitness a few years ago to try to work with athletes, to simplify the process of triathlon. Because what I see in our sport is that it's such a wonderful sport for those that are in it, and such a transformative sport. And like I said, I mean, the last place finisher is just as happy as the first place finisher. It's almost it's a race against yourself. And I wanted to, at least in a small way, be a part of that transformation for others, and just help guide in any way that I could. And also try to bring more awareness to our sport, because I still see it perceived from the outside as this exclusive thing that people say.
Yeah, good point.
Exactly what I said. I can't do it. And I would love it. I mean, my big, hairy, audacious goal would be to try to bring in more people into the sport as just a way to get fit, not as a lifestyle choice, but this is the way to actually sustainable world-class fitness.
Oh, I'm with you, man. That's an Admiral BHAG. Love those big, hairy, audacious goals, man.
Right.
I get it, dude. It seems like it's a sport. Oh, that's for others. That's for just like super rich people.
Yeah.
That's you either have to live in like Malibu or like Montenegro, or
right.
have your own helicopter. So I really like that. Well, I know on another episode I wanna dive into your approach to nutrition. So a little teaser for people that when we come back, we'll be talking about that. But before we go, I wanted to ask you, for people who struggle with or against anxiety, what is there any tip or is there any advice you can give people to find a different relationship with anxiety?
I think the first, I think the idea of at least at first recognizing that there are millions of people who struggle with this. And I think fortunately it's becoming a little more acknowledged in our society now than it was, say, when you and I were kind of coming up with it. And, but first acknowledge it, and acknowledging that there's others out there, that there's help, that we can seek help that don't include putting ourselves into dangerous or destructive situations. And then really, I think one of the biggest things that helps for me just in the moment is the breath. I mean, it's just taking 10 deep and deliberate breaths. It's just so important. I mean, I could get into all of the techniques of how to try and build a new relationship with anxiety, but really I think that's something to involve a therapist or somebody who can help you or something like that. But the breath is so important to all this.
So 10 deep breaths. That's
10 super deep breaths.
That's doable. That's very doable.
Yeah. And you won't feel any change for the first 3 or 4. But after the first 3 or 4, as you start to get into it, and you just start to really focus on that breath, turn your thoughts away from what's causing this anxiety, and just try to shift your focus onto the breath. It's going to calm you in the moment, and then from there, sustainable change happens through nutritional change, through physical change, and through a mindset change. Mm-hmm. So making those daily practices, I think, are important. And find your superpower. Think about what positive comes out of the anxiety that you feel. Like, where could you turn whatever the negative symptom is into a superpower? It's powerful.
Dude, that is powerful. And I think it's good to just keep it as simple as that. Where can people find you, and how can they connect with you?
I'm on. I'm at Adam Hill Try on Instagram, and AdamHillTry.com is where you can learn more about me. I've also got ExtraLifeFitness.com, which is where my coaching platform is.
All of those links in the show notes, guys. Go check it out. And Adam, it's good to connect with you on the show, and I can't wait to have you back, man. And it's I feel fortunate to call you a friend, so thank you.
Always, Mike. Feelings mutual. Thank you.
Alrighty, that concludes today's episode of the Age Groupies podcast with me, Lindsay Hyken, and my co-host, Mike Ergo. We really hope you enjoyed it. You can follow the show on Instagram at Age Groupies, join our Age Groupies page on Facebook, and look us up by name, Lindsay Hyken and Mike Ergo on Strava. If you have questions, comments, or topic ideas, feel free to email us at agegroupies@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please leave a rating and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, as this really helps us get more exposure while we try to grow this little venture. And of course, if you have friends you think might like the show, please be sure to share it with them. But for now, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next week.